Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Pixley for President. I am still Jared Pixley, candidate for president in the 2028 election. To any new watchers, welcome. If you're new to my channel, all of my links are in the description box below. My website, my book on Amazon, my social medias, it's all there. Please subscribe, like, share this video. Last week I had a bit of a downer video discussing the destruction of our country in real time. So for this week I want to do something lighter, like the social duties of the president. So part of the job of being president that people do not talk much about are their social duties. Part of the job that people do not talk much about the president is their social duties. While the First Lady is the social hostess of the administration, the president still has a lot of duties. A lot of related. Part of the job of being president that people do not talk much about is their social duties. While the First Lady is the hostess for the administration, the president still has a lot of related duties. Most people know about the pardoning of the turkey and the annual Easter egg roll, but there are several other events such as special meals, balls, and state dinners. Now, Easter has just passed, so let's start with the annual White House Easter egg roll. Back in 1877, a group of children were looking for a place to have an Easter egg roll. They were turned away by Capitol Hill police, so they went to President Rutherford B. Hayes to ask him to use his lawn. So he hosted the first public Easter egg roll at the White House. And the next year, he made it an official event. Now, Easter egg rolls were held before that. They were popular at the time. Legends claim that Dolly Madison, wife of President Madison, had Easter egg rolls at the White House back in 1814, though there is no actual record of that. Records show that it was an annual custom in D.C. in the 1850s. Though it was done at the Capitol and at different parks. In 1875, the event destroyed the lawn at the Capitol building, so Congress passed a law banning the use of Capitol lawns as a children's playground. So those kids that in 1876 was writing on Easter, so there was no Easter egg roll. 1877. They were looking for a new place to hold it and went to the White House. Today, the event is held on the White House South Lawn, which is where they hold a bunch of the big events. And they have it on Easter Monday. Children 13 years old and younger are invited to attend with their families. The event starts with the national anthem and then opening remarks by the President and First Lady. There are various live entertainment at the event, including the appearance of the Easter Bunny, book readings by special guests like cabinet secretaries or celebrity guests, finger painting, and other speeches. Well, the other event that most people know about is the pardoning of the turkey. Now, this one dates back to 1873, when some farmers started gifting the president with a turkey each year. This led to others sending turkeys to the White House. President Calvin Coolidge fought against the onslaught. In 1926, he even received a raccoon, which he was unwilling to eat, and made it a White House pet. Apparently back then, raccoons were eaten on Thanksgiving, and supposedly they taste like a mix of chicken and suckling pig. Now, in 1947, President Harry Truman started an official presentation of receiving a turkey. This was part of a compromise with the National Poultry and Egg Board. They had been lobbying against a poultryless Thursday, and in 1947, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I believe New Year's all fell on a Thursday. And they wanted to sell more turkeys. Can't have Thanksgiving without a turkey, in my opinion. The first The first record of a pardon for a turkey was by Ronald Reagan all the way back in 1987, during my lifetime. George H.W. Bush, his successor, made the pardoning an official event. At this point in time, the National Turkey Foundation is the group that sends the turkey to the White House. In fact, they actually send two. One was the main turkey, and the second was a backup in case the first turkey was not television ready that morning. A lot goes into this presentation. In fact, the turkeys and their handlers stay at a luxury hotel near the White House. The turkeys get their own room. Barack Obama was the first president to pardon both turkeys sent to the White House. And now they believe most of the presidents are pardoning both of the turkeys that get there. So another event is the Congressional Picnic. It is held every year on the South Lawn. As I said, all the big events are held on the South Lawn. All the members of Congress, all 535 of them, and their families, are invited to mingle with the President and the White House staffers in a casual setting. This picnic usually features carnival rides and musical performances. Each year it has a different theme, such as the Wild West, Broadway, Mardi Gras. So I could do an anime-themed picnic. I'll have to remember that one. Now, this event is non-political. It's just for them to get a chance to mingle together outside of work. No politics involved. Keep the politics at the gate. Okay, now that those are out of the way, let's discuss a big one. State visits. Now, with the previous ones, they happen annually, they happen at a fixed time. Easter is Easter Monday, parting of the turkeys is right before Thanksgiving, the picnic sometime in the summer. State visits happen at the discretion of the president, or sometimes the First Lady if you're in Eisenhower. First Lady Eisenhower did not like her husband's simple soldier food and pushed for various state visits so that the kitchen would make some fancy food for her to eat. Whole story behind that, you can look it up. So being educated is better. So state visits happen, as I've looked at recent years, between 5 to 12 times a year. It depends on what's going on. Now, when the head of state or chief of government, there is a slight difference between the two, and it affects a whole lot. The king is the head of state. The prime minister of England is the chief of government. But when one of them from some country visits the U.S., the president serves as the official host. There is a big program for these visits. They take 3 to 4 days, depending on the type of visit, depending on the reason for the visit, a few variables. It starts with a flight line ceremony when they land at Joint Base Andrews. Then there's the arrival ceremony at the White House, once again on the South Lawn. During the arrival ceremony, they sing the anthem from both the U.S. and the visiting nation. The president and the foreign leader review the troops. They have a 19 or 21 cannon salute, depending on if it is the head of state or the chief of government. The president gives a speech. The visiting dignitary signs a yes book. There is an official exchange of gifts, which have to cost, I believe, less than $350. There is actually a law about it. Then, depending on the reason for the visit and who's visiting, there's either a luncheon at the State Department at Foggy Bottom or with the president in the family dining room. Then there is the state dinner, which is a formal black or white tie, depending on who's visiting, affair. At the start of the dinner, there is a receiving line where the president shakes everyone's hands. It's the president and the visiting leader, they both shake everyone's hands. The meal starts with a toast, or though they say toast, it's more of a speech. Um, each of, then they serve the meal. Each of the 5 courses takes exactly 55 minutes for some technical reason. After the meal, there is a musical performance and a dance. Unless it's the Pope visiting, then they skip the dance. There's a lot more to these visits. As I said, that they're here for a couple of days. Typically, there's a dinner hosted by the visiting official at the Blair House, which is where they traditionally stay. As a payback for the state dinner. The visitor might also make an address at Congress. I said there's a lot to it. And if I do it, I will need to get a tuxedo for this and a black and white tie for it. No, this is blue, not black. At the end of the year, there's a certain holiday known as Christmas, plus a few others. Now, there's a lot going on at this time in the White House. Let's start with a national Christmas tree lighting ceremony. This is usually in early December. Ever since 1923, the White House has decorated a tree on the ellipse near the White House. President Franklin Roosevelt started the tradition of making a formal address during the lighting ceremony. Now, I want to note this is a different Christmas tree from the one sent to the White House that is put inside. I also want to admit, was it this one? I think it's the Christmas tree on the ellipse. Actually has a light on it, an aircraft light, to show aircrafts where they are. So that it's for the helicopters coming into the White House. I'd have to actually look that back up. I don't remember all the details. But I think it's that tree. Yes, the tree sent to the White House is traditionally received and decorated by the First Lady and about 500 volunteers from around the country. The president doesn't typically get involved in that, though Bush did start joining the First Lady for the receiving. But that's a 30-minute job. You stand there, they pull up in the wagon, you walk around it, give them the thumbs up, and then have the servants take it. The servants have the staff take it inside. Then the First Lady also decorates the rest of the White House, and the White House pastry chef spends a month or two making the famous gingerbread house. I did like the one that was made to look like the White House that actually had working lights on the inside. Now, the president, like I said, doesn't have much to do with those. He does, however, have a hand in the White House Christmas card list. Now, the president began sending out Christmas cards unofficially in the 1800s. It was just the president sending it out to his friends, and fancy put the White House put the presidential seal on it. In 1927, President Calvin Coolidge made the first official Christmas cards. In the years that followed, the list of recipients grew longer and longer. President Eisenhower sent them to all the cabinet secretaries, members of Congress, and U.S. ambassadors. President Nixon's list included about 40,000 people. Now, the political parties appear to handle the list and include as recipients the major party donors. Some presidents have had a list of recipients numbering up to 1.5 million people. Now, in a country where the population is only 300 million, that means 1 out of every 300 people get a White House Christmas card. So look at yourself, look at 299 friends, and see who has the connections. As president, I will not have a national committee to handle that, so the job will fall back on me to handle the list. I will do the cabinet secretaries, maybe even the assistant secretaries, members of Congress. That's only 535 people. White House staff, that's, another 1,000. U.S. ambassadors, another few hundred. So easily, easily a few thousand people. Now, if you want to get added to the list, Anyone who donates $1,000 or more to my campaign will be added to that list. Now, in fact, if you donate $1,000 this week, I will buy a second whiteboard and put your name on it so I do not forget. I dare you to test me to see if I will not really do that, because I will. During the Christmas season, the president hosts several Christmas parties in the White House for people he likes. I looked up how to get an invite to one of those, and it's you have to know somebody who knows somebody who knows someone on the inside. Now, these parties do not have a lot of formal rules. It's not a white or black tie. Well, they are not necessarily a white or black tie affair. They could be if the president chooses them to be. They could be more casual, where it's just a suit and tie. I have seen a few different reports of people that have been invited to these parties with no explanation as to why they got an invite, just they were on someone's list. It really seems to be at the whim of the president or at the secretary who actually makes the list. The only thing that I've found that seems consistent across these parties is that the president gives a speech and there's a receiving line. Receiving lines appear at these holiday parties and at state visits. The president and first lady, and visiting dignitaries if it's a state visit, stand there while everyone else lines up to shake their hands. First Lady Laura Bush, in a presentation, talked about one Christmas season where she and President Bush spent 18 hours in receiving lines during the course of the week. Now, the military has social aides at the White House. These are military officers, junior military officers. I believe it's up through the rank of major, or is it major when you're kicked out? One of those. But, lieutenants, captains. Now, 3 of them are assigned to help the president with these receiving lines. One person stands at the line of people and ushers the next one forward to shake the president's hand. Second one stands by the president to whisper in his ear who that person is. And then the third one ushers that person away to make room for the next person. It's a good thing I don't have to remember everyone's names. I am horrible with that. Sometimes I don't even remember my own name. And that's a joke, not a sign of dementia. I got another 40 years before I have to worry about dementia, I hope. On top of the Christmas parties and the receiving lines and all that, in addition to the receiving line, the president also holds a Hanukkah party. It helps if I know where I am in the script. Typically, Jewish members of the White House staff and Congress and their families are invited, plus anyone else the president wants to invite. On top of all the normal stuff that happens at these White House events, there is also the lighting of a menorah. And I'm sure the meal is made kosher instead of the usual food. If there is a meal at these. Once again, if there's a meal, that's up to the president. Now, these are just some of the president's social duties. There are more, like the White House Science Fair, military award ceremonies, the Medal of Honor ones. Yeah, and I'm sure that there's something for the 4th of July. I just didn't even look that one up. In election year, on Inauguration Day, there's the inaugural ball to celebrate winning the election. Actually, it's not just one ball. There are several, as many as the president wants. And the president and first lady have to show up and dance at each of the official balls. There's also unofficial balls that are just put on by people who want to celebrate. The official ones are paid out of the president's inauguration committee. A lot more bookkeeping. Now, these duties are an important part of the president's job as the head of the executive branch, as the chief of government. And so important that the White House has a social secretary to help the president with these duties. And they also help to make sure the president doesn't embarrass himself at these events. Now, I am not a social butterfly. High school dances, I was a wallflower. I would rather stay in my room and play video games or read a good book than go to a party. Unless it was a really close friend, then I feel duty bound to help my friend. Make him look better in comparison. And I'm willing to do what needs to be done. I might not have too many inaugural balls. I don't know when I win the election how many people I want to have to celebrate. Of course, major campaign donors and whoever worked on my committee, I'd probably put together a ball for them. If it's more than too many to fit in one, I'll do 2 or 3. And I'll have a Christmas party for whoever I think deserves one. Obviously, White House staff and their families. Of course, I'll keep the tradition going for the Easter egg roll. I'll pardon the turkeys. But I won't talk about bombing other countries at one of those events. As I said before, I'll need to get myself a tuxedo for the formal events. And that also means I'd have to decide which of the 4 different types of shirts to go with it. Because if you don't know, there are 4 different types of shirts that you wear with a tuxedo. And each one is for a different level of formality. I might have to get one of each. All these things that I'm learning trying to run for president, like how to wear a tuxedo. But I do have a few names to add to the guest list for these different parties. Because like I said, who attends is at the discretion of the president. And while my social secretary will, of course, make, not my the social secretary for my administration, because I believe she is under the office of the First Lady. I'd have to double check that, though. But the White House Social Secretary will make the list of events. I will give her a note with some names. Now, if Dwayne Johnson and Scarlett Johansson are not part of my administration, they're going at the top of the list. Now, in my book, Pixley for President, which, like I said, there's a link for it in the box below, I talk about inviting Arlo Guthrie to my inauguration. As he mentioned in his song Alice's Restaurant, great song, great Thanksgiving tradition. We will play it in the White House every Thanksgiving. Actually, no, strike that. We will play that in Camp David every Thanksgiving, because I will skip town to let the White House staff have the day off. In Alice's Restaurant, he mentions that he was invited to one inauguration, Kennedy's inauguration. And he went because he knew he would probably never get invited to another inauguration, and I want to prove him wrong. So, for my inauguration, and whether or not I like him after that, might get him on other lists, but he will get an invite to my inauguration. A few other people that come to mind: Lindsay Seidel, she's a voice actress; Joni Brozes, she's a cosplay model; AJ from Y-Files, I love his videos; Dr. Mike, I also love his videos; and Max Miller, I love his videos; Rachel Platten, I actually want to get her as the musical act for my inauguration, but I would also invite her to other events because I love her music. Now I cannot remember his name. He's an author of Battletech novels. I've met him a few times at Salt Lake Comic-Con. Salt Lake Fan Expo, sorry. They got sued for using Comic-Con. I would invite him. His books are in a different bookcase. Actually, is this book here? No. Stackpole, yes, this book is here. Michael Stackpole, I will invite him. I could think of about 20 more names off the top of my head if I wanted to. But yeah, I would definitely invite those people. But first I have to win the election, which I determined is about 70 million votes I will need. So I hope I can continue to make these videos, earn your votes. Please share these videos so that I can earn other people's votes. Share it, link them to your friends, post them on social media. Feel free to sign up for my social media. Links are in the description, as I said. And thank you for coming. Have a good day, and come back next week where I will talk about something else. Goodbye.